And Errol Barnett is with us now from the CBS News Washington Bureau. Errol, thanks so much for joining us. I want to ask right away about the foreign policy question here. It's really been a cornerstone of Trump's campaign, yet the Trump transition team has yet to announce its choice for top diplomat. What do you think is going on for Secretary of State?
Well, from what we can tell, Mr. Trump has yet to finalize a decision on who will best put forward his America First policy. I mean, remember, he made so many large and far-reaching promises while on the campaign trail, things like ending a lot of the trade deals with China, with the Americas, with the Pacific Rim. He said he would undo President Obama's attempt to put together a Trans-Pacific Partnership deal. And recently, during President Obama's final foreign policy trip through Greece, Germany, and Peru, the outgoing president made an effort to say it's a bit more complicated than that. If the U.S. steps out of these deals, then China will step in. The U.S. will lose its competitive advantage. And Mr. Trump, he tells world leaders, will perhaps hang on to some of the foreign policy deals that are in place. But Mr. Trump also on the campaign trail pledged to keep companies from moving overseas, which is more complicated than it sounds. All of it is more complicated than it sounds. So the key question for the Trump campaign is who will best be able to deliver on the promises that Mr. Trump made on the campaign trail, but also keep positive relationships with foreign nations. And that's why you're seeing this divide between someone like Mitt Romney, who is seen as more of a moderate Republican, someone that perhaps would be more diplomatic overseas, and another front runner who has been named as Rudy Giuliani, an inner circle ally of Mr. Trump, who has really been his attack dog many times. However, because of foreign deals that he has made in the past, through his firm, he's received money from Qatar, a country with human rights violations, allegations, and he also spoke to an Iranian opposition group, which was up until 2012 on the State Department's list of foreign terror organizations. Since all that has been discussed publicly, reportedly Mr. Trump has been looking at other candidates. It's likely he will pick someone in his inner circle, and you saw a picture there of the former CIA Director David Petraeus, who one of the counts against him is that he pleaded guilty to mishandling classified information. You also have Senator Bob Corker, who is the chairman of the Senate's Foreign Relations Committee, so that potentially could be someone who is able and has experience on issues that are, you know, of global concern.
Sure.
But he has all these people to pick from and time to pick as well. It could be a few weeks until there's a final decision, but of course we don't know for sure.
Well, you brought it up a little bit there in terms of General David Petraeus, but really, you know, Mitt Romney's name been mentioned a lot. Rudy Giuliani's name been mentioned a lot in the last few days. What do you see as pros and cons for those being considered on top of General David Petraeus here?
Well, the pros for Mitt Romney is that he is an establishment figure. He is seen as more moderate and is very careful with his words. So you could, you know, it's reportedly been said that Mr. Trump sees him as looking diplomatic, as really appearing in the role of Secretary of State. But that also is what counts against him. You know, Donald Trump feels as if he's rode this wave of popular support to, quote, drain the swamp, something he said many times on the campaign trail, to get rid of the Washington insiders and to bring in people who will do things differently. And on that count, Mr. Romney is really someone who has angered a lot of the far right of the Republican Party and really the base of Donald Trump's support. And that's where Mr. Giuliani really has assets. He is, you know, Mr. Trump always is seen as someone who rewards loyalty. And Mr. Giuliani certainly has been by Mr. Trump's side for a very long time. That could be something that would personally please Mr. Trump, but he has many more voices in his ears these days, including his Chief of Staff, Priebus, who of course is the former chairman of the RNC, an establishment figure himself. These are people telling him, while it may look good for optics, you want someone who will get things done, and you don't want someone who will be a distraction while trying to execute your foreign policy, who has foreign business ties. And that's really the main thing that counts against Rudy Giuliani.
It's a good point, and it's been so interesting to watch. Errol, I do want to mention in your piece, you talked about senior transition advisor Kellyanne Conway tweeting out that article, essentially discouraging the president-elect from picking Mitt Romney. I'm finding this whole thing fascinating, that a conversation like this would happen on Twitter, a conversation that's happened behind closed doors, now playing out in social media. How unprecedented is the public nature of her actions, given that she's a senior advisor here?
It's very interesting. It's also highly unusual. These types of inner circle discussions on who is in, who is out, and why are typically done behind closed doors. And we know all of this is happening at Trump Tower. And it appears to be an attempt by Kellyanne Conway to just get President-elect Trump's attention. If you remember, during the election, during the campaigns, she even sent out a tweet at one point, a response to someone telling Mr. Trump to stay on message. And she said, hey, that was me at the back of the crowd. I was telling him to stay on message. She doesn't appear to be above saying what she really thinks online. And what's interesting is that many people within the Trump inner circle have taken to a lot of the networks, a lot of the political talk shows to lobby Mr. Trump to make certain decisions, because it's known that he watches television and consumes a lot of his information on, regular, typical media rather than reading dense documents. It's also been reported he's only received a few of his intelligence briefings. So he seems to prefer information that is more easily digested, and perhaps Kellyanne Conway is trying to nudge him just a little bit through his Twitter feed. It's something fascinating to watch.
I know. Can't wait to watch my Twitter feed all day to see what happens next. Errol Barnett in Washington, we appreciate the time today.
Sure.